have translated every Jewish text, every medieval Jewish text into English because it will make it easier for us. I assume that I'm going to speak in Hebrew, but now I'll read it directly in English. So, first of all, the first cause of attraction was the commandments. Namely, only in the land of Israel I can have a rich life. On the other hand, is it possible for me to perform all these difficult commandments which are directly connected to the Holy Land? My grandfather, my holy grandfather, he lived in Poland and he didn't have to perform it. And my grandfather perhaps, and grandmother perhaps they lived in Spain before the expulsion of the Jews, and they didn't have to perform it. Suddenly me, the humble person, can I go there before the Messianic era and accept upon myself all these demands? We have to realize that for Jews, the Messiah has not come. And it's a pre-Messianic era. Since people are distributing it, let me tell you something. I once had a long discussion with the rector of the Mormon University in Jerusalem. And he, they have a very fundamentalistic attitude towards the Bible, and he showed me the Mount of Olives. According to Zechariah, the mount will be split into two parts. And eventually I told him, we don't have to argue. We are waiting for the future coming of the Messiah. When he comes, we'll ask him, is it your first coming or second coming? So for Jews, since it is a pre-Messianic era, there has been always a fear that perhaps I don't deserve it. And perhaps if I go there, I'll commit sins. I will not be able to perform it, and I'll be very rigidly punished. Let me read you a text from the 13th century by the most important Jew in Germany and France this time, Rabbi Meir of Rothenburg. When he was asked by some Jews, shall we go to the Holy Land? The beginning of the 13th century. So paradoxically, his answer was, yes, you should go. But now listen to the conditions, and we shall ask ourselves, who is going to be so brave to go there after these threatening words? Number one, if you go there, you are allowed to go. It's very good that you go. But let him be abstinent in the land and beware of any transgression. For if one sins there, one will be punished most severely, much more than in Greece or in Morocco or in Poland. For God supervises the land and watches over its inhabitants. It's very interesting. It's a paraphrase of a biblical saying, "Eretz asher enei Hashem Elohecha ba, tamid enei Hashem Elohecha ba." God is watches. But when I grew here in the land of Israel as a child, I was sure that since God is looking here, he is defending us, he is protecting us. But here you see, no, the great brother is looking at you every minute, so be very careful. It's not anymore a defending and protecting aspect, but something very threatening. In this place, God is supervising the land and watches over its inhabitants. He who rebels against the king from within the king's palace, namely the Holy Land, is not the same as he who rebels outside it. So you want to go? I recommend that you go, but be very careful. And then this is the meaning of a land that consumes its inhabitants. This sounds very strange, because originally in the Bible, those who said Eretz ochelet yoshvea were the spies. It was illegitimate. Now these are not the spies, the illegitimate, those who betrayed the land of Israel, but it is the greatest scholar of the generation. For them it was a physical fear of the enemies. Now it has become a metaphysical fear. Perhaps we don't deserve it and will commit sins. So from now on, for Jews, it may become a land which consumes its inhabitants. But yes, go. But who is going to be brave enough to go after such a warning? And for those who go there and think they can get away with levity and reckless contentiousness, I would invoke the verse from Jeremiah, but you came and defiled my land, and from Isaiah, who asked of you to trample my carts. So we see very clearly how the first cause of attraction and longing could paradoxically become a cause of retreat and running away from it. Let me move to the second aspect. And I want to make it very clear. These are not, the Jewish texts. Against each of these texts, I can show you 100 of opposite texts. But, a scholar is supposed to say something new. So if I came here and tell you that all the Jews in exile were longing and loving, and there was a tremendous love of the Jews, I would be right. But I wouldn't get any prize. I must say something new, which is hidden. So I don't want, a mistake to be created here. What I'm underlining here is latent, sometimes marginal and peripheral. But whenever the state of the land of Israel has become a real option, you could find, among other scholars, warning and a call for retreat. Let's take the second cause of attraction. I mentioned earlier, the Jewish quarter near the Temple Mount after 67. But on the other hand, there is a classical fear to come to the holiest place. The grandmother of my wife, who was an ultra-Orthodox Jew, she immigrated to Israel in 1949. They were living in Ramat Gan. For more than a year, she refused to go to Jerusalem because she said, a simple person like me, I'll go to Jerusalem. But for many Jews, it has happened in exile. Simple people as us, are we going to the Holy Land? And I am going to quote to you a text again from the 13th century, which is the most radical text that I am aware of in Jewish tradition. So again, don't take it as an example of Jewish tradition, but it is also Judaism. It is Judaism as well. At the beginning of the 13th century, the land of Israel has become an option because of many historical reasons. And there was even a huge, for these times, a collective immigration of scholars from France, Aliyat Baalei HaTosafot, according to some traditions, 300 scholars and all their families and their followers. 40 or 50 kilometers from it, perhaps a little more. In Germany, there was Hasidei Ashkenaz, German Hasidim, who became very much afraid from this fact that before the coming of the Messiah, so many Jews are going collectively to the land of Israel. And a very creative sermon was written by the leader of Ashkenaz, of German Hasidim those days, Rabbi Eliezer of Würzburg, for those of you are familiar with the names, the grandson of Rabbi Yehuda Hasid. He takes the verses in Exodus regarding the revelation on Sinai, when Moses is telling the people, don't come close to the mountain. If you come close to the Mount of Sinai, you will be killed. But now the Mount of Sinai is not anymore the Mount of Sinai, but every mount in the land of Israel. The land of Israel is the place of revelation permanently. Let's read it. You shall limit the people round about. Moses said it in Exodus. Now the interpretation. Around Jerusalem and the land of Israel. Take heed to yourselves lest you not go up into the mountain. Moses. His interpretation, for he, God, has adjured Israel not to force the end and not to go up to the land prematurely. Now the land is like Sinai. Exile is historical reality. The land of Israel is an meta-historical utopia. Don't mix them. You are in historical exile. Don't mix it with the meta-historical utopia. Let's go on. Take heed to yourself, lest you not go up into the mountain. Into the mountain, this is the land of Israel and the Temple Mount. And don't touch its edge. Its edge, the end. Here it's a play with the words. לא לגעת בקצה, in the edge, is in Hebrew also קץ, the end with capital letter. So if you try to touch the edge of the land of Israel, it is as if you touch the end of time with capital letter. Whoever touches the mountain shall surely die, Moses said. His interpretation, whoever hastens to go up to the land shall surely die. No hand shall touch it, for he shall be stoned. Interpretation, whoever goes up before the end will be stoned, for while the exile persists, they shall not go free. And finally, and when the horn sounds long, they shall ascend the mountain. Moses, his interpretation, this horn means the horn of the Messiah in the future. When shall the people of Israel leave the exile to ascend to the land? When the horn shall be blown long, namely the horn of the Messiah. So we see here the second aspect, that to touch the end of the land of Israel means to touch the end of time. To the ultimate place, you're allowed to go only when you reach the ultimate time. And here the Temple Mount has expanded to the whole Holy Land. Finally, what was the third cause of attraction? I spoke about the collective realization of the people, the political, religious fulfillment of the Jewish people. Politeia, Maimonides. Yes, for most Jews, it was a cause of attraction. But for some of them, and again, I'm going to read a very, very radical texts, and most of the texts are not so, even those who have reservations regarding the immigration are not so radical, but I wanted to make it clear and to make it sharp. So let me read another radical text regarding the possibility of a collective immigration to the land before the miraculous coming of the Messiah. I'm going to read Rabbi Yonatan Eibschitz around 1700. I jump here about from historical place to another, from historical time to another, but Professor Mina Rosen can testify that in the paper that I wrote, I was trying to analyze it also according to the historical discipline. The congregation of Israel shouted out their vow, lest you arouse and awaken the love. It's in the Song of Songs. Don't arouse the love before the right time. And by the sage, the rabbis, it was not an interaction between a boy and a girl, but between God and the people of Israel, who is supposed to be the female. So if it's written, don't arouse and awake the love before the time, it was interpreted against the ingathering of Israel. Because the ingathering of Israel means to arouse the love of God, namely redemption before the fortunate moment. For even if the whole people of Israel is prepared to go to Jerusalem, let's imagine that all the Jews are gathered in Vienna, and they are waiting for El Al airplanes to take them. And even if all the nations consent, Gaddafi and Saddam Hussein, all of them are trying to help. Nevertheless, it is absolutely forbidden to go there, because the end is unknown. Perhaps it's not the right time. And perhaps this is the wrong time. Indeed, tomorrow or the next day, they might sin in the Holy Land, and will yet again need to go into exile, heaven forbid. And the later exile will be, God forbid, harsher than the former. Therefore, the congregation of Israel besieged until it shall please. אל תעירו ואל תעוררו את האהבה עד שתחפץ. That is to say, until the time comes when the entire world shall be filled with no knowledge of the Lord. According to Isaiah, in the Messianic era, מלאה הארץ דעה את השם כמים לים מכסים, the world will be filled with knowledge of the Lord. So according to Rabbi Yonatan Eifshitz, it seems that we would be able to perform Zionism only when in Cambodia and in Vietnam the knowledge of the monotheistic God will be widespread. Namely, what has happened here? Two dangers. First of all, we have been expelled because of an ethical religious sin. As long as there is sin in the world, we cannot go. Secondly, the apocalyptic fear of the end with capital letter. Now, before I conclude, I repeat, this is not Judaism. It is one aspect of Judaism, not the most important and dominant one, but it is also Judaism. And if one wants to understand the ultra-Orthodox opposition to Zionism, I believe that this is the real root. Not the fact that Zionism, certainly at the beginning, was secular. Yes, it was important. But a deeper cause is the fear of the place, of the ultimate place, and the fear of the ultimate time. But since I'm afraid that you will run away from this place, because Haifa is also the land of Israel, not only Jerusalem, where I come from, I'll conclude by another quotation that you don't have, which can illustrate the paradoxical development of the idea. Rabbi Avraham Azulai, the same 17th century, in Tzefat, a community of pious Jews, of pious in Tzefat, Rabbi Yosef Karo, Rabbi Chaim Vital, and Rabbi Avraham Azulai. And now he's saying the following. כל הדר בארץ ישראל נקרא צדיק. Everybody who dwells in the land of Israel should be called a righteous person. הגם שהוא אינו כפי הנראה לעיניים. Even if, according to the way you see me, perhaps you think that I'm not a righteous person. But you're wrong. כי אם לא היה צדיק, הייתה הארץ מקיאו. If he was not a righteous person, the land would throw him outside. וכיוון שהארץ אינו מקיאו, since the land doesn't throw him outside, בהכרח הוא שנקרא צדיק. Necessarily, we should conclude that he is a tzaddik, a righteous person, אף שהוא בחזקת רשע, even if according to our eyes, he is supposed to be a wicked person. What has happened here? Yes, on the one hand, the land is very threatening. It's a holy place. To dwell there, it's very dangerous. But you see, we live there. Since we live there, and the land doesn't throw it outside, והארץ לא מקיאו, והארץ היא לא ארץ אוכלת יושעה, it doesn't consume its inhabitants, so it means that if we can maintain our life within the holy place, that we are a righteous person. So here the fear, paradoxically, is defending us and protecting us. So the dialectic of the human mind, and certainly of the religious mind, is almost infinite, and I believe also fascinating. Thank you.